My parents moved my unemployed brother into my home without asking. Then they expected me to fund his lifestyle, his mess, and his laziness. I know how that sounds. Dramatic, maybe even cold, but you haven't lived through it. You haven't been the one who scrubs a sink full of someone else's ramen noodles, pays for the utilities, while your brother runs 4 gaming monitors all day or comes home to find your living room rearranged because it's better for his gaming setup. You haven't stood silently while your parents tell you to be understanding because you're the stable one. I used to think being dependable was a compliment. Now I know it's code for, we'll dump everything on you and expect no resistance. My name is Danielle. I'm 31 years old, I work as an interior architect, and I spent the last 10 years building the kind of life my parents said they were proud of. A career, a condo, my own car, and more importantly, peace. Or so I thought. When I finally saved enough to buy my own space, I imagined it would be the start of something calm. I decorated it myself, every light fixture, every shelf, every table was chosen with intention. My job trained me to see a space for what it could become, and I turned my blank slate condo into a home. It was mine. Until it wasn't. Until my parents decided that my brother Josh, unemployed directionless, and freshly kicked out of his third shared apartment, should move in with me. Just for a little while, they said. He needs a soft place to land. What they really meant was, you've made something beautiful, and we want him to benefit from it without lifting a finger. At first, I tried to be patient. I really did. I told myself he would get on his feet, that my parents would see how unfair it was that I could talk sense into them. But they didn't listen. They never do. So instead, I listened to my instincts. I stopped arguing. I started documenting. And when the moment came, I didn't yell or cry. I just took everything. And what followed was a court case that would end everything they thought they controlled. This is the story of how I stopped being the dependable daughter and started being my own advocate. And yes, it gets ugly, but no one gets to steal your peace and call it love. My name is Danielle Foster. I'm 31 years old and I live in Denver, Colorado. I've worked as an interior architect for nearly a decade, designing boutique hotels and high-end condos, which ironically is how I ended up turning my own home into something magazine-worthy. I'm not flashy. I'm not one of those Pinterest influencers with neutral palettes and hanging eucalyptus. But I know how to build a space that breathes. I know how to make a room feel like it matters. My condo, a one-bedroom unit on the 6th floor overlooking Cheeseman Park, was my dream. It wasn't big, but it was mine, purchased after years of renting basement apartments and saving every bonus check. It had wide windows, concrete floors, and a tiny but functional kitchen I designed myself. I picked every light fixture, every piece of furniture, every shade of paint. No one handed it to me. I earned it. And that's probably where the resentment started. In my family, doing well for yourself isn't exactly celebrated, it's tolerated. My parents, David and Lynn Foster, are old school. They raised us to believe family sticks together no matter what, and by sticks together, they mostly meant, you do what we say because we're the parents. My older brother Josh is 2 years my senior, but feels decades behind in terms of responsibility. He's been unemployed more times than I can count, always bouncing between short-lived side hustles and couches. Every time he failed, lost another job, got evicted. Broke up with a girlfriend, my parents absorbed him back into the home like a wayward puppy. And every time they'd look to me to understand, to be the strong one. The irony is, I never asked to be strong. I just didn't have the luxury of falling apart. I went to college while working 2 jobs. I interned unpaid at a design firm for a year while bartending nights. I paid off my student loans myself. When I got my first real paycheck, I didn't celebrate, I started saving. My parents said they were proud, sure. But pride without respect is just noise. When I told them I'd closed on my condo, they said, wow, must be nice. And your generation is so lucky with those low interest rates. It didn't feel like celebration. It felt like quiet resentment. And when Josh got kicked out of his latest roommate situation for not paying rent, they didn't ask him to figure it out. They asked me to help. He just needs a place to reset, my mom said. It won't be long. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no either. I just stood there halfway between guilt and anger and let their words settle. I already knew how it would go. Josh would arrive, take over, ignore boundaries, and my parents would defend him while I paid the bills and swallowed my frustration. I was tired of being the one who kept everything afloat, while everyone else splashed around making messes. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't jealous. I was just exhausted. I wanted a life that felt like mine. Not a halfway house for the family's golden boy. I told myself I'd set boundaries. I'd be clear. I'd hold my ground. But what I didn't expect, what no one expects, is how subtle entitlement creeps in. How quiet the invasion is when it comes from people you love. I thought I could outreason it. I was wrong. Josh moved in on a rainy Thursday without warning. I came home from a client walkthrough to find a pile of duffel bags, a worn-out gaming chair, and a box of takeout on my entry rug. He was barefoot eating wings and watching a YouTube video at full volume on his tablet. "Yo," he said casually, like he belonged there. "Mom said it was cool if I came early." That was the beginning. No call, no heads up, no offer to pay for anything, just wings, cords, and chaos. I stood there in my own entryway holding my laptop bag soaking wet from the rain and watched my space transform into something unfamiliar. The next few days confirmed what I already suspected. Josh wasn't planning to help. He didn't ask which cabinet was mine, didn't offer to contribute to groceries or utilities. Instead, he brought in another monitor, more cables, and a cheap mini fridge he parked next to the living room sofa, which he apparently decided was his new bed. "The bedroom's too bright," he said. "And your couch is better on my back anyway." He smiled like it was a compliment. I didn't smile back. My carefully curated living room sculptural floor lamp, custom coffee table, textured wall art became a command center for Josh's gamer lifestyle. Headphones hanging from the ceiling fan, pizza boxes stacked behind the couch, dirty socks migrating under the media console. One morning I stepped into the kitchen and slipped on an open ketchup packet. That same night, I opened my fridge and found my meal prep containers missing. Josh was scarfing down my lemon chicken quinoa out of a mixing bowl. "Oh, my bad," he said, mouthful. I thought that was just leftovers. It was mine. When I brought it up politely, carefully, he shrugged. "You're so uptight sometimes, Danny." "Relax. I'll get groceries next time." He never did, and when I asked again a week later, he told me I'm in a transition period. "Mom said you'd understand." That sentence hit harder than I expected. Mom said you'd understand, like I was a support system instead of a sister, like I was supposed to absorb the inconvenience, the mess, the cost, because I could. I started tracking everything then, not out of spite, out of survival. I logged every electric bill, every Wi-Fi overage, every grocery run. I marked the calendar when he borrowed my car and returned it with the gas light blinking. I tallied how many times I came home to strangers in my space, his friends, his girlfriend, his friends' girlfriends. Once I found a pair of boxers in my laundry hamper that didn't belong to either of us. I didn't say anything. I just made another note. I tried talking to my parents. I explained the situation calmly, hoping they'd be reasonable. They weren't. "Josh just needs time," my mom insisted. "You've always had things figured out." "This is just a phase," my dad added. "He's family. That place is big enough for two. Don't make this about money." I asked how long he was staying. They didn't have an answer. "Until he gets back on his feet," they said. But Josh wasn't standing. He wasn't trying. He was lounging. He was leeching. He wasn't in a transition. He was on vacation. And I was footing the bill. The worst part wasn't even the money. It was the way they made me feel for resisting. Like I was selfish, cold. Like I was violating some sacred family code by not offering everything I built on a silver platter. The breaking point came 3 weeks later. I walked in after a 10-hour workday to find my rug stained with soda, my succulent planter knocked over, and Josh shouting into his headset. He paused only to say, "Hey, can we get one of those nugget ice machines? That'd be clutch." That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling seething, not crying, not venting, just silently boiling. I realized something. They weren't going to stop. Not Josh, not my parents. They saw my independence as a resource, my home as a convenience, my stability as permission. And they weren't asking anymore, they were taking. So I made a decision. I wouldn't fight them with noise. I'd fight them with strategy. The next morning, I didn't speak to Josh. I didn't make coffee or put on music like usual. I just sat at my kitchen counter, staring at the ice machine catalog he'd left open on my tablet. He was asleep on the couch, mouth open, controller on his chest, living like a man who thought comfort was owed. Around noon, my mom called. She wanted to chat over brunch that weekend. "Your father and I have been thinking," she said, which never meant anything good. I agreed out of habit more than interest. When Saturday came, we met at their favorite place, a little brunch spot with floral tablecloths and too many ceramic chickens. We ordered. They smiled. Then my mom pulled out her phone, opened the photo gallery, and slid it across the table. It was a photo of my condo. My condo, but not quite because it was staged. Perfectly lit, angled to show the furniture, the flow, the decor. "We're thinking of listing it," she said. "Just exploring options." My stomach dropped. "Listing it?" I asked. "You mean selling?" "Not necessarily," my dad chimed in. "Maybe a long-term lease. Josh could stay." "You're doing well now, Danielle. Maybe it's time to get your own place." I blinked. "You gave me that place," I said. "You said it was for me. I've paid every bill, every repair, every—" "Yes, but technically it's still under our name," my mom said quickly. "We just thought it might be more balanced if Josh had some stake in it too." "Stake," I said. "He's contributed nothing. He's eaten half my groceries and stained my rug. That's his stake." My mom gave me that look, the one that says I'm being dramatic, difficult, unfair. "Danielle, he's struggling. You're not. Don't be petty." That word, petty. Like I was squabbling over a broken remote, not the home I built. Then my dad added the final blow. "If you really want to stay, we'd need to renegotiate rent. It's time you start paying what the place is worth." I couldn't speak. I felt heat crawl up my spine. "And Josh?" I asked. "He pays nothing. We don't want to pressure him while he's looking for direction," my mom said, as if direction was something he misplaced last week. "He just needs stability." My blood ran cold. "So you want me to pay double?" I said slowly, "while he lives there for free." "You're capable, Danielle," my dad said. "You always have been. That's why we knew you'd handle this maturely." Maturely. Like swallowing injustice without complaint is a virtue. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just nodded slowly and excused myself. When I got home, Josh was on the phone laughing loudly, feet on my ottoman. He paused when I walked in. "Hey, you cool with me having a few people over tonight? Shouldn't be more than 10. I didn't answer. I walked into my room, opened my drawer, and pulled out the folder I had quietly been filling for weeks. Receipts, photos, item lists, all of it, my proof, my power. It was no longer a question of if I'd act. It was when. And it would be soon. Very soon. I gave myself 1 week, 7 days to turn silent fury into decisive action. I wasn't going to fight them with arguments. That never worked. I was going to let facts speak, let absence echo, let consequences do the talking. First, I took inventory. Every single object in that condo that I had paid for. The couch mine, the bed mine, the light fixtures, wall art, bar stools, even the damn shower curtain mine. I went room by room, made a spreadsheet, logged every item attached, receipts, photos, purchase dates. It was meticulous, obsessive even, but it gave me control in a situation where I had none. I also checked delivery records and credit card statements, screen-captured emails with suppliers, re-downloaded confirmation receipts from stores. Everything had my name on it. I hadn't intended it for legal reasons back then. I just liked records. Now they were my lifeline. Next, I took photos of the condo as it stood. Full shots, angles, close-ups, before evidence. I timestamped everything. Meanwhile, I acted normal. I made small talk with Josh, smiled when my mom texted, replied sure when my dad sent an article about interior design trends. But inside, I was drawing the boundary line. Saturday arrived. I woke early, loaded a box truck I'd reserved under a fake name just in case, and parked a block away. I waited for Josh to go on his usual afternoon weed run. When the door shut behind him, I moved. Fast, efficient, surgical. I packed room by room following my list. If it wasn't mine, I left it. But that left very little. Within an hour, the bedroom was empty. 2 hours later, the living room echoed. I even rolled up the rug, packed the toaster, emptied the spice rack. The only thing I left was the ice tray he never filled. Josh returned mid-haul. He stood in the doorway, stunned. "What the hell are you doing?" I didn't look up. "Moving," I said simply. "Wait, like, out. You're seriously taking all of it." "Every piece I paid for," I said. "Every item you used for free. Where the hell am I supposed to sit?" "Not my problem," I replied, wrapping my coffee table in a blanket. "Dude," he said, voice cracking. "You're screwing me here." "No," I said. "I let you screw me for months. I'm just reclaiming the damage." He pulled out his phone. "I'm calling Mom." "Go ahead," I said, hoisting my TV stand onto a dolly. Within minutes, my phone lit up. Then again, Mom, Dad. Then a group text, then voicemails. "Danielle, what's happening? You can't just take things. Danielle, don't do this. You're escalating." I ignored all of them. I was done explaining. By mid-afternoon, the condo was a husk, an empty shell with scuff marks and dust where a life once stood. I left nothing behind but silence. Josh stood there in shock, phone dangling, mouth open. "This is theft," he shouted. "You're stealing. Everything's documented," I said. "Try me." That night, I moved into a short-term rental across town. I ate a microwaved burrito on a bare mattress and felt more peace than I had in months. Then the email came from a lawyer. My parents were suing me, $14,000 for unauthorized removal of shared furnishings. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so predictable. I forwarded the email to my lawyer. "Let's dance," I said. My lawyer's name was Elise Tran, calm, focused, sharp as glass. I sent her everything, every receipt, every dated photo, every text from my mother complimenting my design work, every message Josh sent asking me to grab more snacks or fix the sink. Elise read it all, built a folder so thick it needed tabs, and said simply, "They don't have a case. We're not just defending. We're going after damages." I nodded. I didn't want revenge. I wanted clarity. Court wasn't glamorous. No slamming gavels or dramatic monologues. It was a plain room with gray walls and worn carpet, where decisions were made with files and silence. My parents came with their lawyer, a man named Peter, who clearly thought I'd back down. My mother wore a soft gray sweater like she was the picture of gentle concern. My father didn't meet my eyes. Josh wasn't there. Coward. Their lawyer started with a speech about expectations, about shared family resources, about how I had agreed implicitly to furnish the condo as a joint residence. Elise stood slowly and said, "Let's begin with proof of ownership." Then she laid it out, every dollar I'd spent, every item bought in my name, every time-stamped image of the apartment before I moved in. "The unit was empty," she said. "No furniture, no appliances, no decor. My client designed and filled this space herself. She has receipts for every item, including the plunger." The judge looked through the folders, page after page. Then he asked their lawyer, "Do you have any receipts?" "No," the man admitted, "but the understanding." "An understanding isn't ownership," the judge interrupted. "You're asking the court to ignore written documentation in favor of assumed familial generosity. That's not how this works." My mother shifted in her seat. My father clenched his jaw. Elise continued, "Furthermore, we have documentation of ongoing financial burden. My client paid all utilities, all groceries, and all maintenance costs, while the co-occupant provided nothing and disrupted the property." Then came the photos, before and after. My living room transformed into a gamer's cave, the stained rug, the scuffed coffee table, a shot of Josh's friend asleep on the couch during one of his parties. The judge's face didn't move, but I saw something shift. Understanding, recognition. Then Elise said the line that ended it all. "They tried to punish responsibility, to reward entitlement, and they assumed silence was agreement. But my client's silence was strategy." There was a pause. The judge tapped his pen. Then he said, "Case dismissed, all claims denied. Ms. Foster, you are awarded $8,400 in legal fees, storage costs, and property damages. Your documentation was thorough and compelling. My parents looked like statues." Elise packed up without a word. As we walked out, my mother whispered, "Danielle, this didn't have to happen." I turned. "You're right, it didn't." But you made it happen. That night, Josh texted from a new number. Long rant. Guilt blame passive aggressive pleading. You could have just been chill. You nuked the family over furniture. I didn't reply. I blocked the number. A week later, the building manager called. Hey, just a heads up, your brother's been asking if we can loan him furniture. I laughed. That's between him and the people who threw me out. Apparently, Josh had assumed my parents would replace everything. They didn't. He was sleeping on a yoga mat using his hoodie as a pillow. My parents listed the unit for rent, but the photos showed bare floors, nail holes, and the faint imprint of where my rug used to be. No one bit. Meanwhile, I was living in peace. I bought a small condo on the outskirts of the city. Nothing fancy, just clean and mine. No knocks, no freeloaders, no guilt. I didn't invite anyone to the housewarming. Just me, a candle, and a pizza. It wasn't a celebration. It was a boundary, a message. You don't get to take everything from someone and expect them to stay soft. They wanted a pushover. What they got was a woman with records, receipts, and resolve. And I'd do it all again, twice, without blinking. A month passed with no word, no calls, no texts, no knocks. For the first time in years, I slept without waking to footsteps outside my door or voices bleeding through the wall. I made my own coffee, sat by my own window, and watched the light shift across floors no one else had scuffed. The quiet wasn't lonely. It was earned. Then one afternoon, a letter came, handwritten, from my father. We made mistakes. You're still our daughter. I read it twice, then folded it away. Not out of anger, out of clarity. Because there's a difference between apology and accountability, between regret and change. You don't get to break something, call it family, and expect the pieces to come back together by themselves. A few days later, my cousin texted me an update. My parents had sold the unit. Took a loss, but couldn't afford to hold on to it any longer. Legal fees, failed staging attempts, Josh's constant complaints about the unlivable space, it all added up. Apparently, he left a pizza box in the fridge during a showing, and a potential renter walked out. The dream of turning the unit into passive income crumbled with every entitled message they received from the son they thought would thrive. He didn't. He moved back home. And from what I heard, it wasn't going well. Why didn't you tell me adulting costs so much? He texted them. The irony nearly made me laugh. He thought comfort would always appear on command, but that's not how the world works. Comfort is built, earned, protected. I had learned that the hard way. As for me, I kept building. I put up floating shelves in my new kitchen, hung linen curtains in my bedroom, planted herbs on the tiny balcony I now called mine. I didn't buy much. I didn't need to. Peace takes up very little space. I got a message a few weeks later from a former colleague. Saw your court story on Reddit. That was badass. I didn't even know it had been shared. Apparently, Elise had recapped it anonymously in a legal discussion forum, and it took off. Hundreds of comments, people cheering, people sharing their own stories of being used, of being silenced, of finally saying no. That meant more than the case win. Knowing that someone somewhere might read it and think, I don't have to take this either. Because you don't. No matter who they are, no matter what they gave you once. You don't owe people the right to misuse your kindness just because they share your blood. Family is not a hall pass for harm. You are allowed to choose yourself, to walk away, to take back everything you built and say, this ends here. I still have the folder, still have the list, the receipts, the photos. Not because I'm holding a grudge, because it reminds me what self-respect looks like in ink. And when I look at it, I don't feel bitter. I feel proud. I defended my space, my effort, my boundaries. And I won. The price of peace was high, but it was worth every dollar, every silent night, every empty room that slowly filled with only what I allowed in. My name is Danielle Foster, and I am no one's fallback plan. Not anymore.